Once you have set up your workspace and your preferences here in Adobe Illustrator, you're ready to start. So one of the first differences between Photoshop and Illustrator is that Photoshop, you go to File and Open and you have a photograph to work on. Illustrator, you start with nothing. So I'm going to go to File and New, and right across the top, I'm going to click Print to get my typical page sizes. I'm going to come over here to Tabloid, and that should be 11 by 17, but when I jump right over here, it doesn't say 11 because it's set to measurements of points. So the first thing you want to do is change that measurement to inches. So you have 11 inches wide by 17 inches high. Then when you click Create, there's your page that you're going to be working on. So obviously the goal is to draw something here, but I don't know what to draw. What you have to do is imagine this is an art board. Illustrator even calls them art boards. I refer to them as pages because we draw on pages, but Illustrator will call them art boards. Now, just like art classes, when you have those hard wooden art boards, you need to tape down a sheet of paper. Or in this case, you need to tape down a scan so you can trace over the scan. Okay, Illustrator even mimics the look of tracing. It should be called Adobe Tracer, but everybody thinks that tracing is cheating. Illustrator is just the fine art of cheating, or the fine art of tracing. And I don't think tracing is cheating at all. There is an art skill to tracing because you are stylizing as you trace. If you wanted everything photographic, you print a photo, okay? You are tracing over scans to produce your interpretation of reality. That's just how it goes. So what I'm going to do is go to File and Place so I can trace. That's the simple rhyme that you want to remember when you go to Start in Adobe Illustrator. Choose File and Place so you can trace. Out here on my desktop, I will go to my Illustrator files and Chapter 3, and I have Folder 3.1. Now I have 3 scans. We're eventually going to go through all 3. But I'm going to start with file number 1. And notice I only clicked on it one time. That one click will show you a preview of what you're about to place on your artboard. But then down here, you have a set of options. You want to make sure those are open, and you want to make sure there are no check marks. Okay, if it says link, turn that off. You don't want to create a visual link to your file because then you would have to save your Illustrator file and your linked file. In this case, we're going to embed the scan to make it a permanent part of our Illustrator file so we don't break those visual links in the future by accident. So under Options, make sure all your check marks are turned off. You click Place. And then it's going to show you a preview of what you are about to place on the page. So you just click your mouse, don't click and drag, just click. And if it doesn't land where you wanted it to land, you go to your black arrow. I'm going to click and drag that up and just line it up with the upper left corner of my page right there. And that's good. This is the stuff that I want to draw. Now, what you don't want to do is end up bumping your scan like that off the page. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is even mimic the look of tracing. You'll notice on layer 1, to the right of the name is a blank space. And I'm going to double click that space, and that brings up my layer options. I can name the layer. I can tell Illustrator how I want the layer to behave. So I'm just going to call that Scan. And then right down below, I want to click Template. A template layer is a scan layer. It's a reference layer. The whole reason for a template is that Illustrator will automatically lock it so you can't accidentally bump it around. and it will automatically turn off the print function. So technically, if I set up a template layer and I go to print, my printer would notice this as a blank sheet of paper. It would not print the scan. You don't want your scan to print as part of your Illustrator file. You only want your artwork to print as your Illustrator file. So we, as the user, get to see where to draw. The printer will not. Okay, the other thing that's going to happen is Illustrator doesn't quite know what you want to do with this scan, so it's going to dim the image by half of the amount, 50%. It's not too weak, it's not too strong. I would say here 50% is still too strong. So I always recommend you narrow that down to 30%, or you lower that down. Okay, now when I click OK, watch how dark these lines are, but when I click OK, they'll be kind of semi-grayed out. It even looks like I just laid a sheet of tracing paper on top of them. Now, the biggest mistake that I see people make in Adobe Illustrator is they turn off this lock. Okay, it is locked for a reason. You do not want to disengage this lock. It locks your scan so you can't accidentally move it. It locks your scan so you don't accidentally draw on that layer. And you don't want to draw on that layer. Double click, because none of your artwork would be seen. None of your artwork would ever print anyway. So once a template layer is locked, it is done. You leave it alone. Do not unlock that lock. Okay, the way Illustrator works is you're going to create a brand new layer and draw above your scan on the sheet of tracing paper that's floating above your scan or sitting on top of your scan. I'm going to double click the name right here just to rename the layer, and we'll just call that curves. You hit enter or return to accept the name. And then if you're starting on a brand new layer, you hit D for default colors. That sets up your fill for white and your stroke for black. Now, strokes are lines, so all we want to draw on this page are lines. We're not concerned at all with filling any artwork. So I'm going to click on the white fill once, and then on my keyboard, I'm going to hit the question mark key. Your question mark key, if you look at it on your keyboard, also has a slash on it. That slash means slash out the fill. Do not fill artwork with any color. All I want to do is draw outlines or strokes. Okay, every time you hit the letter D for default, your stroke, the thickness of your line is going to be 1 point. That's going to be very thin. So here in your introduction to Illustrator, I'm going to go up to the stroke value, hit the up arrow, and make my lines 5 points. Just so they're thicker so I can see what I'm doing here in this introduction. Now that I have that set up, there's no fill. I'm just going to be drawing black lines that are thicker black lines. I'm on a brand new layer to draw because my scan has been locked. I'm going to take my zoom tool and I'm going to click. I'll click to zoom in. I don't click and drag like I did in Photoshop because that's going to zoom into the box that you dragged. Remember, I went to preferences, performance, and in my case, I turned off GPU performance. I turned off the animated zoom. So zooming will work a little different here in Illustrator. If you zoom in too much like that, hold Option on your Mac or Alt key on your PC and click a couple of times to zoom back out like that. Okay? Spacebar will activate your hand tool and you can move this around. And then I'm going to go to my pen tool. Right here from the start, if you want to make curves, you have to click and drag. You're going to be making direction lines. The length of the direction line determines the length of the curve. So what I always tell people, if they've never drawn with the pen tool before, look at what you're going to draw before you actually draw it. I look at the length of that curve, and then I look at the angle of that curve. What you want to do is click and drag about 30% the length of the curve. So right here, if my curve is going up to the right at, let's say, 30 degrees, I'm going to press and hold and push my mouse up and to the right at 30 degrees, about 30% of its length. Not way out here, not way up there, but the curve starts here and goes up and to the right. There's the angle, and there's my 30% of the length. As soon as I let go of the mouse, move away. Okay, you want to look at this line, and you are tracing the curve. So you're going to go down, just like a train on train tracks. The train is going up and over the hill. Now it's coming down to the right. Let's say it's going down to the right at 30 degrees. So I'm going to press and hold and continue down and down and down until my curve bends up here. So that's the kind of confusing part about the pen tool. You drag down to create a curve above. It's like walk forward over here, but look backward over here. Okay, what you're also going to notice is that I get these little flashing lines, or these little flashing lines right here, or these little indicators right here. Those are called smart guides. I don't have to be real precise when I'm doing these simple curves, so what I'm going to do is go to View menu, and I want to turn off any check marks. I want to turn off smart guides. I will go back up to View again, and I will turn off snap to point. And I will go up to View again and turn off snap to glyph. When I'm first starting a file in Illustrator, I turn off any check marks on my View menu. Okay, the other thing you're going to want to turn off is something called your bounding box. When I click on my black arrow and I select a line, notice it has a box around it. That box is a transformation tool. I'm not trying to transform this line. Okay, so what I want to do is go to View menu one more time and hide my bounding box. That way, when I click on a curve, all I see is a curve. Later, if you wanted to transform this curve, this is your free transform tool. It activates that bounding box for you. Activate it when you need it, not all the time. So I'll go back to my black arrow. Now I don't see a box around this line. I'm going to click outside, deselect the line, go back to my pen tool, and if you've watched my Photoshop demos about the pen tool, you'll remember that before you use the pen tool, click on your white arrow first. That is your editing tool. Especially if you're new to Illustrator or new to the pen tool, you're going to be making a few errors here and there. And the white arrow is your editing tool. It allows you to move anchor points around. So I'm going to click on the white arrow first. Then I'm going to click on my pen tool. And now you'll notice the curve goes up a little higher. This is a longer line, which means I have to drag longer direction lines. If the curve goes up at 60 degrees to the right, I'm going to go up 60 degrees to the right, about 30% the length of the curve. So right here, I'm going to press and hold, and the curve goes up and to the right about 60 degrees, and there's about 30% of the length. As soon as I let go of my mouse, get away from that, follow the curve. It goes up, and now it's coming down at about 60 degrees. So I'm going to press and hold and continue going down and down and down until my curve lifts and traces over the scan. Every time you're done, you have to deselect that line. So in order to turn off this line, to tell Illustrator this line is done, you hold Command on your Mac or your Control key on a PC and you will get that white arrow. Just click anywhere on the page and that line will be deselected. It's done. I let go of my Command key on my Mac or Control key on a PC and my pen tool pops back up, ready to go. If I hold my space bar, I can activate my hand tool and pull this into view. And then just to show you how flexible the pen tool is, I'm going to purposely make a mistake on this curve. So obviously, if I was going to do this correctly, I would look at the length of the curve. It's even longer now, which means I'm going to have to drag slightly longer lines, 30% of that longer length. And I look at that curve, it's going up about 80 degrees to the right. But let's say I start here and I go up to the left. When I let go of my mouse, I get away from that area. And let's say I come over here and I accidentally click and drag down to the right. Make a curve that's totally wrong. The goal here is don't delete your artwork. You've already established some artwork on the page. Why delete it and start all over again? You can simply hold your Command key on your Mac or your Control key on a PC, and if the point wasn't drawn in the right area, you click and drag that point. These can bend and go wherever you want them to go. So I'll just put it back where I should have drawn it. Then I take the end of this direction line, this direction point. It should have gone up to the right, not up to the left. So I take that little direction point and reposition it. Take this little direction point, reposition it, and I correct my curve. I don't delete my artwork and start all over again. That's a waste of time. I hold Command on my Mac and click to deselect. That'll be your Control key on your PC, and you click to deselect. When you let go of that key, your pen tool pops back up, ready to go. Hold my space bar for the hand tool, and I'll push this one into view. And I'm going to make another mistake. Okay, so let's say from here, instead of going up like I should, I'm going to click and drag down. Totally the wrong direction. Then when I let go, I'm going to come over here and I'll drag down. And then I get something totally twisted and not looking correct at all. That's not going to be a problem either. I hold Command on my Mac or Control on my PC, and I take this line and I say, well, actually I should have drawn that upward like that. And I put it up where I should have drawn. I take this one and I make it longer the way I should have drawn, and it's an easy fix here in Adobe Illustrator with your white arrow and your pen tool. Command click on my Mac to deselect. That would be Control click on your PC to deselect. And I hold my space bar for my hand tool and I'll push this up and I'll push it over to the right. And it says low and short direction lines will make lower curves. See, we've got this kind of ground plane red line right here. So if you stay low to that, you're going to barely bend your line. I click and drag up to the right, let go, move away. Here at the end, I drag down to the right, let go, and move away. Once that line is done, Command click on your Mac or Control click on your PC anywhere on the page, and that will deselect that line. Space bar can move the next one over, and I'll do it again. I'll click and drag a low direction line up to the right, add an even bigger gap over here at the end, click and drag down to the right, and you can see I get just a little bit of a bend to that curve. Command click on my Mac, Control click on my PC to deselect. space bar for my hand tool, and now you can see an even wider gap, which barely is going to bend that line. You can see up here, when we've got a high direction line, it creates much more of a curve. If we have a low direction line, it creates less of a curve. So I'll click and drag up to the right, let go, create a larger distance here, and at the end, I click and drag down to the right. I just barely give it a curve. Command click on my Mac to deselect, Control click on my PC to deselect, space bar for my hand tool, and I'll push this up. And I can't quite see the length of that entire line. So what I'm going to do on my Mac is hold my Command key and at the same time hit the minus key on my keyboard next to the number 0 across the top of the letters. If you're on a PC, you would hold Control key and hit your minus key to zoom out. Now I can take my pen tool and I'll start right here. What you got to do is look before you draw. Like you tell little kids, look before you cross the street. Well, here, be careful. Look before you draw. Direction lines will get longer and longer as your curves get longer and longer. So notice the distance from here to here. That's pretty short. So 30% of a short distance is going to be a really short line. I'll click and drag a short line to go up to the right, let go of my mouse, and move to the next white anchor point. Notice my pen tool is coming down and to the right to get there. I press and hold and continue down and to the right. When I let go of my mouse, I've established the first curve and simultaneously started the next one. So every time you let go, move ahead. Now the curve turns and goes up to the right. So I'll press and hold and go up to the right. Every time I let go, move ahead. Now it goes up and over the hill, comes down and to the right. So I'm going to press and hold and go down and to the right. There we go. Let go, move ahead. Now it turns and starts going back up to the right. So I'll press and hold and continue to push my mouse up and up and up to the right until I've made that curve down there. Every time you let go, move ahead. Now it goes over the hill and comes down and to the right. So I'm going to press and hold and continue down and down to the right until my curve fits over my scan. Command click on my Mac to deselect. That would be Control click on your PC. And if you see any weird bumps or if things are off, you can hold your Command key or Control key on a Mac. That will activate your white arrow. You can click anywhere on this line and then readjust these if they need to be. So if I drew a curve like that, and then at the end, I go back and I see that, I click, activate the direction lines for that segment, and just pull them back down and reposition them so they look better. Command click outside or Control click on my PC. Hold my space bar and push this up even higher. And then I'll do it again. When your curve has much more of a curve to it, your direction lines are going to go up much higher, not lower like we saw before. So right here, if the curve goes up and to the right, I go up and to the right. Every time you let go, move back to the curve that you're tracing. Now it's coming back down to the right. So I'll press and hold and continue to go down until my curve bends above. So always keep that in mind. When you let go, go back to the curve you're tracing. You're going to be continuing to go up, and that's going to bend the curve below. Drag up to bend the curve below. So I'm going to press and hold and drag up, and that bent the curve below. Every time you let go, move ahead. Follow the curve that you're tracing. Now it's coming down, so I will continue down, let go and move ahead. Now the curve is coming back up, so I will click and drag up, let go and move ahead. Now the curve is coming back down, so I'll click and drag back down, let go and move ahead. Now the curve is ending by going up, so I'll press and hold and continue to go up. Once I have that done, Command click on my Mac to deselect, Control click on your PC to deselect. Space bar always activates your hand tool, and now you're going to come to the situation that you're probably going to see most often. Okay, not everything you draw is going to be perfect, equal lengths. It's not going to happen like that. It's going to be something like this, where you might see the curve of an elbow and then the curve of the arm. So you're going to have short curves connecting to long curves, and then short curves and then long curves. Things are going to alternate. Short curves attached to long curves require you to go back to recreate new direction lines. So here's how it's going to happen. If I look ahead before I draw, we have a very short distance. 30% of that is going to be a pretty short line. So right here, the curve goes up and to the right. I let go, move away. Now it's coming down and to the right. So I press and hold and I drag down right there. Short line because I just created a short curve. But this short line dragging down is simultaneously starting the next curve that goes down. Notice the length from here all the way down and all the way up. This is not 30% of that curve. That's more like 10%. So if I let go right here and I jump all the way over here and I drag up again, that's not going to do much for my curve. Okay, so I'm going to hit delete on my Mac. That will be backspace and backspace on your PC. So here's how this set of curves is going to work. From the beginning, it goes up to the right. So I click and drag up to the right. Short line to start a short curve. I let go of the mouse, follow the curve, and here on the right side, it's coming down to the right. So I press and hold and go down to the right. Short line to end a short curve. But this is the beginning of the next curve, and that's long. So I have to back up to the end of the line, press and hold, and now drag a new longer direction line coming down to start the new long curve. I let go of my mouse, come back up, press and hold and go up and up and up and up and up to create that much longer curve. Notice how high or how long I had to drag that line for this longer curve. But notice how long that is compared to the next one. Remember, you're going to drag 30%, not 300%. Okay, this long line was to end the previous long curve. Now I have to go back on the end of the line. I have to get rid of this direction line now. So I press and hold, drag a new short line to start the next short curve. Come over here, drag a new short line to end that short curve. This short line ended the short curve, but it is also simultaneously starting the next one. This next one is really long. I have to drag 30%, not 10%. So again, I have to go back to the end of the black line, press and hold, and now drag a new longer direction line to start the next long curve. Let go and move ahead. come up to the top here. The curve is going up and to the right. So I press and hold and push up and up and up. Long line to end that second long curve. That long line is also starting the next one, but that's really short. So again, I back up to the end of my black line, press and hold, and now I drag a short line to start the next short curve, drag a short line down to end that short curve. That short line was good for the short curve. It's not good for the next long curve. So again, I come back to the end of that black line, press and hold, and now I create another long direction line to start the next long curve. Let go, move ahead. This curve is also ending by going up and to the right. So I'm going to press and hold and push up and up and up. Long line to end a long curve. That long line was good for the long curve. It's not good for the next short curve. 30% of short is going to be pretty darn short. So I have to come back to the end of the black line again. Press and hold. Drag a new short line to start the next short curve. Drag a new short line to end that short curve. Okay. Command click on my Mac or control click on my PC. And if I want to see all the results of this page, command and the number 0. That would be control key and the number 0 on a PC. Command 0 or control 0 means fit page on screen. So now that I'm done, I've just traced the lines that I wanted to show. You take your bottom layer and you throw it in the little trash can. I don't need to see your scan. I need to see what you drew. Okay, so there we go. Once an Illustrator file is done, you're going to go to File menu, Save, or Save As. You don't have to go to Save a Copy. This is different than Adobe Photoshop. So here, I'll just go to File, Save As. Save it as what? Well, I'm going to save it on my computer. I don't want to save to Creative Cloud. I'll save it on my computer. Then I'm going to name it just like I do files from Photoshop. Last name, first name. We'll call this Curves 1 because we're going to do 3 of them here. So this is number 1 of the 3 files. I want to make sure it's on my desktop like everything I've done in the past. And now, since you're in Adobe Illustrator, you're going to just leave the format alone. Adobe Illustrator files are saved as Adobe Illustrator files. There's no JPEGs here. That's a totally different process. You are creating Illustrator files from Adobe Illustrator. It'll say .ai for Adobe Illustrator. When you click Save, you're going to get another window that says, what version of Illustrator do you plan to continue working with? Just keep it on the top. Okay, I know this is 2023 or 2024 if I'm looking at this video 6 months from now, but it doesn't say that. Okay, so 2020. That's fine. See, compatible with Illustrator 24 and above anyway. So that's as high as it goes for now. So just leave it there. Okay, create PDF compatible files should always be turned on. ICC profiles is a default. Use compression as a default. You want those 3 check marks there. And then you click OK. That's how you're going to operate here in Adobe Illustrator. So I'll see you in the next demo. Congratulations. 1 down, 2 more to go.